Hello, Dale McDermott here with the CGLCC, and welcome to the 2020 Digital LGBT Plus Global Business Summit. Before we get started on the session, CGLCC would like to recognise our presenting sponsor, TD Bank Group, along with all of our gold and silver sponsors and all of our sponsors for helping us to make this event happen. We would also like to recognise our translation partner, AI Media, for enabling us to deliver live caption translation in 3 languages, English, French and Spanish, and you can access those using the links below in the description box. I'd also like to draw your attention to the left-hand side of your screen to the networking and exhibit hall tabs, where over the course of the next 5 days you can connect with LGBT plus businesses, corporations and each other to help drive that power of connection. And finally, if you do like the content we are producing, please feel free to make a financial contribution using the donate link in the description box below. Thank you and enjoy your session.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Craig Ryan from the Business Development Bank of Canada, BDC, and I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about a movement of people who are among the most public-minded, interesting members of the community you will ever meet. I'll take about 15-20 minutes to describe the movement of entrepreneurs that is called B Corp and explain to you why it's especially relevant for us as members of the LGBT community and why it's especially relevant in a post-COVID rise of local businesses that we're seeing. To begin, though, you need to understand why we, BDC, tripped over this socio-cultural movement. We're the only bank in the country that's devoted exclusively to entrepreneurs, and so it makes sense that we pick them up on our radar. We have a lot of information and data on them, and we do surveys all the time, but rather than boring you with numbers, as bankers sometimes do, I would rather tell you the story of 2 clients who are terrific exemplars of this movement. We'll start with Annie Hulot. Annie Hulot is a wonderful woman from my home city here of Montreal, and her company is called the Unscented Company. It's a very simple company. She sells soaps and shampoos and cleaning agents that have no aroma, no smell. It's a terrific company. It's enjoying real success. But Annie built it in a way that she says, up until January, had some investors and some observers looking at her with incomprehension and indeed condescension. One of the things that she insisted on when she built her company was creating livelihoods in Montreal. So rather than sourcing her soaps in France or China, she insisted on having it made as much as possible from local ingredients. She has a team and a warehouse that's within dashing distance of her home. She has a second team that helps her with social media stuff on the south shore of the St. Lawrence, not far from her home. And this way of doing things, which up until recently was seen by some as hopelessly passé and old-fashioned, is actually what's enabled Annie to survive. We have a loyal customer base, a loyal, hardworking team, and a robust local supply chain. She was able to weather the crisis and indeed flourish. Her sales went through the ceiling, and her total company revenues are up 50%. Now, of course, Annie's proud that her company is doing so well, and she only created it 5 years ago. It's fairly new. And she's very proud and pleased that it's surviving the COVID crisis. But when you ask her what she's proud of, she will probably introduce you to her employees, one of whom, for example, is an ex-Syrian refugee new to Canada, and the handful of Montrealers for whom she has helped create wonderful livelihoods that are inclusive. Second story. You'll forgive me. I've chosen a second Montrealer, even though these entrepreneurs are across the country. This woman, her name is Natalie Volant. Terrific woman who never planned to be a businesswoman, trained as a social worker, when she was called home by her parents one day and told, honey, your dad is sick, we need you to take over the family company. The family company was 1,500,000 square feet of commercial real estate in hulking turn-of-the-century buildings in all the iffy neighborhoods of Montreal. No small task. And so social worker Natalie said, I'm happy to do it, but I'm going to do it my way. Now, I could talk for an hour on the many ways that this woman has made her company sustainable and helped create local prosperity. She has buildings full of startups because she insists that a flourishing economy in Montreal is important in helping make Montreal a better place to live. So she seeks them. But I'll limit myself to her marquee project, which was a decision to buy and overhaul from top to bottom a 19th century church. So folks, this is Montreal. The churches here are many and they are big. And so when you buy one, you buy quite a big ship of a building. She converted a 19th century place of worship into a 21st century of community inclusion. Without a dime from government, without a dime from foundations, she did it. And she built it. And so if we were to ask Natalie, like we'd ask Annie, if she's proud of her success, in her case, unexpected success in business, the key to understanding her motivation is that you cannot remove that community center from her feeling of accomplishment. Now, when the Annies and the Natalies of the world seek to certify their companies, and people do this for lots of reasons, there's an embarrassment of choice. There's tons of them available, and the logos you see on the screen right now are all perfectly valid, praiseworthy certifications. Their problem is that their strength is their narrowness. You and I could sit in the head office of Monsanto and sip fair trade coffee and look at a CSR report. It will not tell us everything we might want to know about that company. Until now. Now there's a certification available only to entrepreneurs who are using for-profit companies or for-profit commercial corporations that captures not just the breadth of what they're trying to create with a successful company, but also is explicit about its purpose. So if you'll permit me the professorial part of the presentation, what I'd like to do now is tell you about the B Corp certification, what exactly you would have to do to get your company certified, and how you'd go about that. What this will help you all understand is if you as an entrepreneur want to do that, you'll know what's entailed. If you as a consumer, prizing local, shop from a B Corp company, you'll know what you're getting. If you as an investor are looking to invest in a company, you'll know what you're getting. And if you're looking for work, you'll find a long list of, I think, some of the best places in the country to work. So to certify as a B Corp, you have to have one thing and you have to do two things. You have to have the mindset of the Annies and the Natalies of the world. You have to want your company's success to help make where you live a better place to live. The second thing you have to do is to get through a performance evaluation of your company's impact, which I'll now talk about. And then lastly, you make a legal change, a very important legal change. So let's look first at the performance evaluation. You'll go online to a website and you'll begin a confidential, completely free assessment of your company's impact. This assessment takes the form of 200 questions, precise, tangible questions that probe how you do things at your company, grouped together in the usual categories that we see of this kind. So there'll be questions on governance. How do you run your company? Do you have something resembling a board of directors? Might there be a woman on that board of directors? Workers, you say you treat them well. Please show me. And there's lots of questions on that. The third category, which I put in yellow because it's particularly relevant today, is community. And we'll explore this a little more deeply, but community does not start with the classic community investments with which we're all familiar. It starts with bigger, more meaningful stuff, such as the livelihoods you create, the supply chain that you create, and your relationship with the community organizations around you. We'll return to that momentarily. Fourthly, you will answer questions about the environmental footprint of your company. Its water use, its energy use, its greenhouse gas footprint, all of those things. And finally, you'll answer questions on the impact, the positive impact, if any, of what you're selling, your product and your service. Now, let's look at the community section in greater detail. There are questions that probe livelihoods. So, where are your workers? Are they 5 time zones away, or are they within dashing distance of your place of business? Same questions for your suppliers, your significant suppliers. Where are they? How far are they? With how long have you had relationship with them? And can you show that that's been a longer term resilient relationship over time? Community relations and outreach. Are there community organizations that would be affected by, and then who can have an effect on you and your community and your neighborhood? And as I said, finally, the impact of the product of your services. The key thing to understand here is that it is a broad and deep examination of your relationship with the community, not the usual one of charity. Charity, of course, is welcome, and if you do it, you'll get a point for it. But the B Corp certification probes more deeply. Now, I said that there were 200 questions, and so what that means is that the pass mark for the B Corp assessment is on a scale of 200. So it's points, not percentages, and on a scale of 200, not 1. That's an unusual quirk to keep in mind. And I'd now like to explain the origin of the pass mark. When the creators of the B Corp certification tested their idea and tested their questionnaire, they did so with companies in about 30 sectors in 20 countries all around the world. And they paid close attention to the scores that companies received when they sent their scores back. And they noticed that the scores tended to cluster around 2 numbers. One gang, quite big, obtained about 50 out of 200. And the second gang, about a smaller gang, tended to get marks around 80 out of 200. The companies that obtained around 50 were those that said, I take my cues from the law. Like if it's legal, I do it. If it's not, I don't. Right now, a lot of people think like that. That's not surprising. The group that got 80 were different. They were people who said, well, law is a lagging indicator. I can do much better than that, and I'm going to try. I might even subject my performance to verification by a third party. Or even the law asks me to do A, B, but I can do A, B, C, D. And it's my company, I'll do what I want, so I will. And I'll do A, B, C, D. And so they were sustainability champions around the world who defined success in those terms. And they tended to get around 80. What this meant was that the B Corp people decided to set the pass mark at 80 out of 200. And so what that means is that if you certify your company as a B Corp, that its performance and its impact is among the best in the world. Now, after you obtain your 80 out of 200, you have to make a legal change. And this might sound like a boring point that you'd bring to a notary, but it's actually the heart of the matter. So please, if you're going to write down anything I say today, make it this. You open the act of incorporation of your company, and you add the explicit legal notion that the purpose of this company is the creation of a value that's bigger than bucks. This company responds to stakeholders that include the shareholder, but do not deify the shareholder. And as I said, this can sound like a fussy legal point, but it's actually the heart of the matter. The defining characteristic of the present day practice of capitalism in the Anglo-American world is the insistence on short-term shareholder value, meaning money money, and then more money that we calculate and that we extract every 3 months. And I'm at the BDC. I know armies of entrepreneurs, and I watch these things closely, and I can tell you, every day, somewhere in a courtroom in North America, there's an entrepreneur like Annie or Natalie facing off against a bunch of activist investors who do not understand why you would want to waste your money on overhauling a church, and do not understand why you would want to build local livelihoods and say, change those practices, give me my money. Any standard issue MBA would walk into Annie's plant or Natalie's church and say, yeah, these are lovely, but they're distracting you from the point, which is shareholder value. So every day, those entrepreneurs lose. To be a B Corp, you can't just say you have a mission. You can't just put it on your door. You make it legally explicit and you put it in the act of incorporation of the company. Now, once you certify, there are benefits that flow from it. The decision to certify is almost always intrinsically motivated and a desire to join the tribe of peers. But when you do it, there are, of course, business benefits. You differentiate your company and its services from your peers or your competitors. Social media loves it. Traditional media, not so much. They're slowly catching on. Consumers who have seen or learned of the connection between B Corp logo and local will come to it. And there will be a lineup of millennials outside your door who want to work for you. At the BDC, we are 2,500, which is small compared to banks, but big compared to most people. So we hire by the truckload. Fully 1/3 of all the people who ask to work with us say, I'm here because you are a B Corp, or they ask after arrival, are you one? The third benefit that people talk most about is you get to benchmark your performance with that of your peers. Not just the peers in your home city, but the best of your sector around the world. And entrepreneurs love doing that. Finally, you enter a pool of people who like and who seek to do business with each other. I have yet to meet a B Corp entrepreneur who hasn't discovered biz dev opportunities from joining the movement. If we ask Annie Rouleau what benefit she notices the most, she cites the classic reason, which is that those 200 precise questions that are often hard to answer, that are explained when you don't understand them, and the answers that they provide as examples of best practices around the world became for me a de facto strategic planning guide. I learned how to build a robust regional or local supply chain through the questions in the B Corp's assessment. If you ask Natalie what the benefit she notices the most, she cites something fun. She says, I have a whole staff of people who normally don't care about quantified performance objectives or keeping track of numbers and things, but they are highly, highly motivated to improving our B Corp score every time we recertify, so that they pay attention to that stuff now. So she's got a small army of millennials who pay a lot of attention to the details. And that reminds me, I neglected to mention, once you certify, you're only good for 3 years. Then you recertify. Today, there are 3,300 entrepreneurs who have certified their companies. So it's not a mass movement yet, but it's a global experiment that is working wonderfully well. They're in 70 countries, and they now include some multinationals. I'll cite here 2 examples, Unilever and Danone on the left of your screen. Unilever, massive Unilever, buys lots of other companies and has lots of companies in its stable. And it reports that the B Corps in its portfolio are among its most profitable. Danone is not one company. It's actually about 30 country business units of the same company. So 30 legal entities that are together the world of Danone. And thus far, roughly 20 of the 30 Danones around the world have certified themselves. And they observe the same thing, that their products that are B Corp, their allies that are B Corp, are among the most profitable and most robust. The world of investment is starting to see this movement too as particularly interesting. Danone 2 years ago got a 2.3 billion euro loan from a consortium of banks, a gaggle of at least 12 of them, mainline traditional banks. And they were given their loan at a preferential interest rate based on their performance according to environment, social, and governance indicators. The standard used was B Corp. So basically, if you hold your B Corp status, you will get a lower interest rate on this massive 2.3 billion euro loan. And that's worked wonderfully well for them. There's a subtle double reason why investors like B Corp. They like B Corp for the same reason that we DC have noticed, and that is if it gets through a comprehensive, bracing 200-question survey and then does the same thing every 3 years, it's better managed. In general, a company that can do that is a better managed company, and so therefore automatically deserving of greater consideration for investment. The second thing is a little more subtle. If you look at B Corp entrepreneurs compared to conventional minded entrepreneurs, what you see is people who have a radar on society, who notice changing trends before some others, and indeed who help change those trends. So if you ask yourself, where is tomorrow's profitability? Where is tomorrow's action? You're probably, or more likely, going to find it from a B Corper than you would a conventional company. And that's a really important point that investors are catching on to. And the investors with whom I speak are also seeing other trends that are highly relevant for us as a group. In the pandemic-induced coma in which the economy at present is, one of the most striking things that everybody noticed, I think, was the sudden, powerful clarity on the importance of local. Suddenly, everybody, consumers, the public, elected officials, realized that local business is important, their success is important, and when they suffer and when they close, it makes a difference to us. The B Corp movement is best understood as the biggest builder of local prosperity that the business world has seen. And they define themselves not only locally, but local inclusive. So some of the most creative, bracing, ambitious measures to incorporate, that's the wrong word, to serve underserved parts of the market. So bring underserved or underrepresented parts of the population in and onto your board, in and onto your employee base. Find a product or invent a product that is geared to them. I'm made to think of a fellow who created a very B Corp-ish company that offered dental services on Vancouver's Lower East Side, which is a neighborhood that desperately needs those services. The simplest of things. B Corp companies are, at first glance, conventional looking. At second glance, wonderful creators of inclusive local prosperity. That's the best way to understand them. Now, we BDC have learned a lot from our involvement in this movement over the years, and it's quite humbling, actually, to meet rooms full of Annies and Natalies every single week. And then to watch their success, a great many of them are clients, to watch their success in our portfolio over the years. And we've learned a lot of things that fly in the face of conventional thinking on business, both its motivations and its goals and its success. The first thing we noticed was that this ain't the traditional business case. This is not the business case for sustainability 2.0. This is a socio-cultural movement who define success this way. None of them are saddled by Milton Friedman's maxim about the purpose of a company. Indeed, most of them aren't even saddled by an economics degree, and they've never even heard of Milton Friedman, and they're disappointed to learn that he's dead and that they can't give him a whack across the back of the head because they think that that idea that the only purpose of a company is shareholder value is too ridiculous for words. So to understand the Annies and the Natalies, you have to understand them as people acting with moral conviction and defining their company success as a function of that. The second thing we learned is that unlike what most people expect, which is, oh, a company that's like this is less profitable or less serious, wrong. They are as profitable and as robust as any conventional company. The fourth thing you need to know is that it's not all mom and pop stores in certain places. People expect it all to be grounded in one sector, and that's not the case. When we BDC compare our B Corp and B Corp-like entrepreneurs to our overall portfolio, what we see is that they are all sizes, all regions, and all sectors. And in late days, the final point, we see that the movement is being fueled even more by the pandemic-induced public and consumer awareness of the importance of buying local. So that, folks, is the B Corp movement. As members of a community that often has had to struggle to make its place in society, this is a business movement that is actively inclusive. And as members of a world where a great many people have been humbled by nature and reminded that nature is boss, and who are seeing fault lines in society laid bare by a virus and an economic shutdown, these people, the Annies and the Natalies, are the kinds of people that we need to build back better, that we need to buy from, and that we should invest in. B Corp. Thank you very much. Now, I'm told that I'm to go to the Q&A session. And I don't see any questions in. A minute to go. Okay, I found the questions. Bear with me. Hi, Craig. Oh, I'm going to need help right now. I'm having a tech problem. Fairware in Vancouver is saying hello. I can't tell if Fairware is on our call. If I could share my screen, I could show you a photo of Sarah White from Fairware, which I have on my computer. But Fairware is a terrific company based in Vancouver that does promotional, in the promotional trade. They are terrific. They're one of the first and founding B Corps in Canada, and they are members of our community, and they have been extraordinarily successful. And I bet that they have the relationships and the collaborative potential to weather the COVID crisis, even though most people aren't doing events anymore. Now, I'm going to have to call on our tech colleagues to help me. Oh, no questions so far. So I don't see any questions arriving just yet. So I would encourage you to please do so if you have any. But what I'd like to do, we have a question. How would someone, here's our question, how would someone start the process of getting certified, and how might BDC help? Damn good question. The first thing you should do is Google B Corp, and you'll be brought to bcorporation.net. And that is the place where you would open a file in yours and your company name and begin answering the 200 questions of the assessment. Remember, it is free, although if you certify, there is a modest annual membership fee. And it's also patient. It's not like those companies that insist you do your transaction in 15 minutes. You can do it in a short period or a long period. Most people take several months. Some people take 2 years. When you use it as a strategic planning guide, as most do, take your time, there's no rush. The second thing you could do is come to my home base website, bdc.ca, and go to our B Corp section, contact me directly if you wish, and come to one of the many events that we often hold. We hold awareness-raising events for entrepreneurs across Canada, and we regularly hold in the big cities of Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal, and whenever we can in other places. workshops, 2-3 hour workshops at which we sit with you and guide you to and through the first steps in certifying. So I would strongly recommend you do those things. Okay. Second question. Craig, do you offer any specific consulting, banking options for entrepreneurs who are looking to create a new B Corp, specifically at BDC? We offer support of the kinds I described, the workshops, lots of conversations. But this question actually raises a deep question that could have been, the answer of which could have been incorporated into my presentation. When we discovered this movement a couple of years ago, many people looked at the idea of a company for something other than just money and said condescendingly, oh, it's not serious. You'll want to give it like a lower rate or something, or give it a grant or something, because it'll probably die if it's not focusing on the bottom line. And so folks in marketing would say, give them a deal to lure them in. I was in early days in the no camp saying, no, I don't think we should give them anything different. I think we should treat them like every other company, because I think they are just as strong as every other company. And we asked ourselves, what's the most powerful contribution that BDC can make to this national movement? And our answer was by standing up and saying that these companies are as strong and as serious as any other. And so now, 4 or 5 years later, we can say that. We can say, based on our data and our portfolio, that these companies are as strong and as robust and as profitable as conventional-minded companies. We haven't done it yet, but we are considering perhaps doing it. If we were to offer a preferential interest rate, it would not be because they're weaker. On the contrary, it would be for the opposite reason. They tend to be better managed, they're robust, and like the bankers who gave Denon, right, a preferential interest, ours would be based on their performance that is strong and lower risk. Third question, do you think there's a responsibility upon LGBTQ plus businesses to become B Corp? Can you give any examples of B Corp LGBTQ plus enterprises? Sorry, my font is small here. A responsibility. I don't know that I would call it a responsibility. I do think, though, there's a high interest. Remember, when you enter the tribe that is B Corp, the tribe of Annies and Natalies, the tribe you're joining is people for whom successful businesses create societal value, and who, as imperfect as all humans are, make actual efforts to improve themselves, make actual efforts at active inclusion. That's why if you can show when you do the evaluation that your company has deliberately and effectively sought to include disenfranchised members of society or underserved parts of the population, you get points. And with everything that's happening in the United States these days, you won't be surprised to hear that in the B Corp movement there and internationally, there has been a real doubling of efforts to help harness the power of the movement to create an economic system that is characterized by justice and equity and diversity and inclusion. So I would strongly recommend that you all investigate the movement. I would strongly encourage you to all use the Business Corp, the B Corp business tool as a strategic planning guide. I am convinced that when you do, you will find like-minded peers and business people with whom you will love to compete. Another question. Can you provide an estimate on the amount of time required to complete the application process from start to finish? It'll vary depending on how big your company is, of course. The average is 3-4 months. Some people do it a little quickly. Other people, as I said, take 2 years. It can take time. There is no fee to process, but of course there is effort and time. Most companies, even large ones, say I spoke with one last week. They have 500 people, so a 500-person company. They assigned the responsibility for centralizing Q's and A's and filling out the forms to one person who did it full time, and that person completed it in 3-4 months. Most people proceed that way. It's designed to be done by you. It is designed not to require the support of a professional advisor or seconder, although past a certain scale, people sometimes find it useful to bring in an intern to help. So as I said, the average completion time is 3-4 months. And that's because if you did it full time all day, every day, you'd be neglecting your business. Fifth question, are there legal or policy barriers or challenges that are unique to B Corps right now? And what can governments do to better support them? That's a really interesting question. On this week, we saw enter into force a new law in British Columbia. And it's a creation in law in British Columbia of a corporate form that people can choose should they wish to. It's called the Benefit Corporation, which is a corporation that is held to higher social, environmental, and governance standards, and that exists with an explicit purpose. You'll recall I said the really important thing you have to do is make the legal change to say that we are not just a money mill, and you can do that even if you were created using the conventional template for corporation. In BC, you now have that option for something more targeted again. Canada's Parliament removed a barrier as well. Last year, it amended the law that is the law by virtue of which most companies incorporate federally, which is the Canadian Business Corporations Act. And the Canadian Parliament amended that law so that it is explicit and clear beyond any doubt to anyone who reads it, that if you create a law, you create a company rather, if you create a company using this law, that it, and you make decisions that favor employees or that favor community or that favor the environment, and then you're sued for making those decisions, well, you can't be sued and they won't have a case. So the greatest support that governments can help with this socio-cultural movement is unshackling itself from old-fashioned thinking and greater awareness. I think, for example, what the government of Quebec is doing in the post-COVID era, I'm sure other provinces are doing it the same, but I have the fresh numbers from Quebec. In the striking rise of the importance of local or public awareness of the importance of local business, the province of Quebec created a platform for Quebec companies called Le Panier Bleu, the blue shopping basket. Within the first week of its installation, it had received, I'm told, 2 million visitors. This in a province of 8 million. And it's doing a booming business. And it's been so successful, they are planning to expand and deepen it. So one thing we see at least one government doing is noting the rise of the importance of local and then acting to promote it. Sorry, that's a long answer to your question, but I guess the answers would be get out of the way and unshackle them from old definitions and then promote it in ways appropriate. Sixth question. Can a new company that does not yet exist add the legal mission statement required by B Corp at the time of incorporation, or does it need to be done after certification by self? No, you can put it in before, provided you don't have investors that are going to squawk and say, no, don't do that. Some might. You can put it in beforehand, provided that the wording matches as it should what is required by the B Corp certification. And on the B Corp website, there is a section that deals with that, the what's required and recommended wording. There are also B Corp legal firms that would be happy to help you with that, and they will never get it wrong. Oh. Okay, so I will wait a couple of more seconds in case we have any more questions. Can I give an example of any B Corp LGBTQ2+ enterprises? I have to mention Sarah. Not only do I have her photo on my desktop, but Sarah White of Fairware. And I know she's attending this conference, although I don't know if she's attending this session. If you are, Sarah, please raise a hand or let me know. As I say, the company is called Fairware, and they are based in Vancouver, and they do promotional products. We've done business with them, so I can attest that they are terrific. And like I said, this is a difficult time for companies in that sector because events are canceled. But if there's a company that can use collaborative relationships and nimble agility to change with the times, I bet it's Sarah and her colleagues. So I would be fairly confident that Fairware, a terrific LGBTQ plus community enterprise, is doing really well. Okay. It's been a real pleasure with being here, folks. I do hope this has been helpful to you. I do hope I have been clear. And if any of you would wish to enter into a direct conversation with me, please don't hesitate. Google me via this site or hunt me down on the BDC website, and it would make me very happy to talk directly. Okay. So, thank you all and good day. I will have to defer to my colleague who's responsible for tech. I know how to say goodbye. Oh, here's a second question. Can you recommend a second LGBTQ community? Yes. There is a terrific company, a new company called Goody World, Goodee. It was created by a pair of twins who I interviewed in a podcast that we BDC do. I interviewed Sarah as well. And I find it particularly inspiring in these days. Their ethos is sustainably sourced, ethically sourced, and beautiful. I'll say this bluntly. One of the problems with the green movement is whenever they come up with products, a lot of them are ugly. And these people feel that no, it can be sustainable and it can be ethical and it can be responsible and it can be damn beautiful too. And so these twins, Byron and Dexter Peart, whose company Goody World, headquartered in Montreal but present elsewhere, sources the most wonderful products from around the world, priced as they should be. And their motto is, have less, have better. So in addition to Fairware, which is written as one word, Fairware, I would strongly recommend that you also investigate Goody World. Okay. I will now defer to my tech colleague to bring our session to a close. And thank you again for your time. Bye.